You're listening to Unlocking Vulnerability, a podcast produced by Helen, helping you better understand consumer vulnerability.
Hello, I'm Helen and welcome to Unlocking Vulnerability. In this episode, I'm delighted to welcome my special guest, Matt Blanks, who is project manager at PeerAid at BetKnowMore. Matt is a recovering gambling addict. He now works for BetKnowMore UK, using his lived experience to help and support others currently suffering. Hi, Matt. It's wonderful to have you on my podcast today.
Hi, Helen. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Really looking forward to doing this and sharing my story.
Brilliant. Do you want to start by giving us a brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm 36. I live in Southend, Essex, and I used to work in the betting shops for 16 years. That was my kind of background. And during that time, I struggled with a gambling addiction for the best part of 20 years. But now I work for, as you just alluded to, I work for BetKnowMore UK and helping and supporting others, and I'm service manager for PeerAid.
That's brilliant, and I know that you're working on some really exciting campaigns as well to get gambling awareness really forefront of people's minds, which is fantastic. So we may talk on that a little bit later. So I know that your role at BetKnowMore came about as a result of your personal experience of a gambling addiction. Are you happy to share your story with us today?
Yes, sure. So I'll start from the beginning. So, yeah, I was 11 years old when I was first exposed to gambling, and it was a difficult time in my life. My mum and dad were going through divorce, and at that age, I found it really tough, like not being able to talk about my emotions and my feelings, and I kind of went into myself really and kind of suppressed all that. And my dad not being there every day, because we used to do everything together, I found really tough. So he moved out the family home and he moved in with his dad, which was my granddad. And I would go over there over the weekend. My granddad would be sat up the table with the Sporting Life writing out his horse bets, and I just become inquisitive and asked, what you doing, granddad? And he explained to me that he's writing, putting bets on the horses, and he just asked me to pick a horse. And 11 years old, didn't have a clue what I was doing, just picked a name. And what happened, of course, my horse won at 33-1, and my granddad won quite a bit of money from that bet because he had it in two winners with another bet. So he gave me £20. So instantly my first experience of gambling at a young and difficult time in my life was a rewarding one. Mid-90s, that £20, lasted me for ages. Penny sweets were a penny, and packs of Premier League stickers and all sorts really. So yeah, it kind of started from there. And then every weekend from then on, my granddad would pay for me to have a little horse bet, and I would go up, I'd write it at my granddad's, and then we'd walk up the betting shop together. And obviously back then, before the 2005 Gambling Act, children were allowed in betting establishments. Obviously couldn't gamble until they're 18. And I just found something exciting and some comfort from that environment as well, seeing, on the TVs, the horses and the dogs, and chatting to my granddad's friends. And, I kind of felt on a level with adults. And I kind of had an interest in it. So that was kind of, where it all started. And even of an evening, my granddad would get the penny jar down and we'd play cards together. And, although it was kind of pennies, we were actually doing the activity of gambling. So I was kind of conditioned from a very young age that, gambling was okay. It was acceptable. And it stayed with me throughout my life, really. Got to the age of 15, I started betting independently in betting shops by myself. No one ever ID'd me or questioned me. I knew how to write my bets and knew how to stake my bets even when the tax used to be in. And yeah, during that time at school, all my friends would be out playing football on the field and all that, and I'd be sat in the tutor room playing cards for my dinner money and things like that. And sometimes I'd take my tie and blazer off, leave the school premises at lunchtime, walk over to the Corals over the road and put a bet on. And it was kind of at that stage as well where we was deciding about careers, what we had to do. I decided I wanted to work in the betting shops. I thought I enjoy gambling, and it'd be a dream job. Why wouldn't I want to do that? Get paid for doing something that I love. And obviously, I didn't see it as a problem at that time. So I left school. Didn't really have any qualifications, GCSEs and stuff, and I just had a temporary job for a couple of years at home base. It was literally just biding the time till I was old enough to work in a betting shop. And a week after my 18th birthday, I applied for a few gambling operators, and one come back and offered me a position as cashier. And I thought, wow, this is really happening. The dream. I can live the dream. My gambling changed from there, really. Something that I used to do kind of on a weekend basis. Obviously, being in that environment, 5-6 days a week, I used to gamble more. So I'd leave my shop at lunchtime, go down to a competitor, put bets on. See, a lot of the staff you work with all gamble because they've got an interest in it. That's why they're working in that job. All your customers, you're just surrounded by it. And I liken it to an alcoholic working in a pub. If you're surrounded by drink, you're pouring drinks, you're seeing people drink, the likelihood is you're going to end up relapsing and having a drink yourself. It's no different to a gambling addict working in a betting shop. There's just so many triggers that you're just surrounded by it. Yeah, over the years, I got into a lot of debt. I was borrowing money. I was taking out credit cards and loans, and I got bailout after bailout from family members. And I told them that this is the last time, I won't do it again. And obviously I didn't. I returned back to gambling, and it cost me relationships with my mum and my brother, which I still haven't got back to this day. Them bailing me out, and even friends. I lost a few friends along the way, and relationships. I've got 2 children. They're now 7 and 9, and that relationship broke down with their mum because of my gambling. So that was a real difficult time in my life, because it kind of took me back to my childhood, really, where my dad wasn't there all the time. All of a sudden I had to move out of my family home, and I wasn't there seeing my children every day. And I had to kind of start again, really. I had to get my own flat, and I was working long hours in the betting shops, and just become very isolated, and my gambling spiraled out of control. My mental health took a real turn for the worst, and I actually attempted suicide because I just couldn't see a way out. So that was really the rock bottom, and it was at that point that I knew that I really needed help. So I reached out to a gambling operator. They put me in touch with BetKnowMore UK and Frankie Graham, who's the founder and CEO, and he himself has lived experience of gambling addiction. And that first phone call that I had with Frankie was just a massive relief. And then we met a few days later, and just having someone to talk to that I knew that had gone through it and really understood me and wasn't going to judge me, it's just a game changer, really. I literally poured out everything that I'd had inside me that I felt like I couldn't tell anyone for years. And that was a massive relief. And I started going through my recovery. I left the betting shops because I knew that I couldn't stay in the betting shops and recover. And I more or less stopped overnight. Obviously I wanted to do it for myself and for my kids and for my family, but I also felt accountability to Frankie, that I didn't want to let him down as well. I learned a lot of things about myself, my triggers and stuff. And I started volunteering for BetKnowMore. Done that for about 6 months. And then I got a full-time position as community outreach, helping and supporting others in the community that are struggling through my lived experience, like Frankie did for me. And I really enjoyed that. That was really successful. Lots of people, I helped lots of people, which, I love doing. And then October, about 10 months later, the PeerAid service started, and I applied for the coordinator role, and I ended up getting the service manager role, which was a really proud moment for me, and I love being running that leading that service. It's going to make a big difference to a lot of people. And I've just done so much in the last sort of 2.5 years that I've been in recovery. Got a level 4 in suicide prevention, level 3 in counselling, level 3 in teacher training, an assessment qualification, so I can assess people's work. And someone that left school with hardly any GCSEs, I've just, recovery's given me a new lease of life.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Matt. It's such a powerful story, and it is hard to put into words how I feel when you are sharing that, because it is so powerful, and all the different emotions that you must have been going through is just really thought-provoking. And it's great to hear the work that you're doing with BetKnowMore. So, can you share more about the work you're doing there? Yeah,
sure. So, obviously, PeerAid is a peer support service. And it's never been tried in the gambling recovery sector. Obviously, there's lots of peer support programs and peer mentoring through drugs and alcohol, which have been successful, but it's never been, properly tried in the gambling recovery space. So we set up, obviously, PeerAid back in October 2019, and it's a BetKnowMore service, but it's in partnership with GamCare. GamCare are the national treatment providers for problem gambling in the UK. They offer a clinical model where you would get sort of 6 to 8 sessions of CBT with a practitioner. So we developed a training course and got it through an accreditation body. So it's an official qualification. So we find people that have at least 12 months abstinence from gambling but want to help and support others. They go through our training program. They get the qualification, which is a level 2 award in gambling peer support, which is accredited by NCFE. And then they can start helping and supporting those that are suffering. So clients get referred in to GamCare, and they get, if they want the PeerAid service, someone with lived experience, they get the referral gets sent to me. I match them up with one of my peer supporters, and then there's a therapeutic alliance. So not only do they get the practitioner, but they get someone with lived experience to help them engage in services and help them through. And it just really having someone that's lived through it really does inspire hope, and it motivates people. And the figures are quite shocking, really, in terms of they forecast there's about 400,000 pathological gamblers in the UK, and less than 3% of those access or have any treatment. So we're really hoping that by having this lived experience, this peer support can really get people engaged into treatment and start moving that number up.
That's a shocking figure, isn't it? And do you think that the low intake of people accessing support is due to awareness, that actually they don't know where to go to get that help?
Yes, I think it's a culmination of a lot of things, really. I think it's exactly what you've just said there, awareness. Lots of people, we still hear stories today, lots of people don't know where to go for help, how to access any sort of treatment, where to signpost. If you Google like gambling recovery, or the first few searches is betting sites, because of the word gambling, or betting, how can I stop betting? It brings up gambling sites before any sort of recovery. So there's work that needs doing in that space. But yes, it's a lack of awareness, but it's also a lot of shame and a lot of stigma for those people that are suffering. Myself, I was in denial for years, and it took me to a dark place before I could recognise that I actually needed help. So it's a mixture of both, but hopefully by having sort of boots on the ground and lived experience and raising awareness of what help is out there, we can start to move that figure up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also in giving people the skills that if somebody then does share with them that they are gambling addict, that actually they know how to support that person and where to signpost. Because I know that prior to us recording this, we were talking about somebody that that was trying to access support through their GP, and just the GP just had nowhere to signpost them to. It was sort of unknown to them, really.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Really scary that that there are people out there that don't know where to signpost. So it's great, all the work that you're doing with BetKnowMore to get that awareness out there. And I know in your story that you shared that you mentioned it wasn't just the financial impact that you were facing as well, it was all the other different things that brought into your life, the challenges and the situations. What other impacts are people going to be facing, just obviously apart from the financial impact of gambling?
Yeah, I mean, everyone that thinks of gambling associates it with money, and it really isn't just about money. It's such a complex issue, gambling addiction. There's normally always a reason behind why people gamble, and obviously you do need money to gamble. It facilitates the behaviour, but that isn't the only impact that gambling addiction has. It's a lot of time as well. It totally consumes you. If you're not actually doing the activity of gambling, you're thinking about gambling, you're thinking about how you can get hold of more money. You spend more time gambling than you wanted to. You miss family engagements. You don't see friends because you haven't got money, and it's just it's really complex, and that's one of the things that you learn coming out of when you go into recovery and stuff, is that now when you stop gambling, you've got all this time because you spend so much time doing it. Now, what do I do with this time? So it's just sort of changing your behaviours, finding healthier habits and things like that. And you're essentially living a double life as well, because there's no physical signs like drugs and alcohol. You can present as normal on the outside, like I can still go to work, I can still function, I can, it's not like I turn up drunk or high or anything like that. So on the outside, you can present as normal, but inside is absolute chaos. And doing something like that for a period of time, for many years, like many gambling addicts do, your brain's not wired up to take all those highs and lows, and it affects your mental health, and poor decision making, your physical health, because you haven't got time to prep and cook a meal. You just want a quick fix so you can carry on gambling. So you eat lots of junk food, poor diet, no exercise. So yeah, it's really not just about money, and that unfortunately that there is a high suicide rate attached to gambling with the mental health, whether that be through suicidal attempts or actually unfortunately death by suicide. So yeah, it's really complex.
It's really, really sad, and it's hard to comprehend that people are still facing that situation alone, really. And I think, I'm just struggling to sort of find the words, really, to sort of comprehend everything that you're saying in this. I think it is just really, really powerful, and that we really do need to do everything we can to support people who are facing these situations. I think it's absolutely crucial, which is great that you're now working with BetKnowMore. And I know that there's been some fantastic changes and developments within the gambling infrastructure, really, isn't it? And the regulations and restrictions and that over the last few years. I know that they've obviously brought in the changes to gambling with credit cards, which is fantastic. That was earlier this year, wasn't it? I think, if I remember rightly. How can organisations both identify a customer who may have a gambling addiction, and then obviously once they've identified, how can they then go on to support them?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of sort of identifying as a customer or as an employee that works for their organisation, I mean, obviously the banks have all the data of how much someone's gambling per month. They can, people move direct debits. People cancel direct debits because, they've lost too much money. People don't pay bills. You can see, people taking out loans and payday loans and things like that. So between the gambling operators and the banks, they're the ones that have all the data, because obviously people don't talk about their addiction and things like that, but you can quite clearly see from someone's bank account or their history of that if they're spending sort of between 60 and 80% of their monthly salary goes on gambling, and so they're the sort of organisations that can see from a customer perspective. And I think identifying maybe from an organisation for their employees, just things to look out for in a person, mood swings, being tired, talking about gambling at work, maybe big wins. I used to always post up on Facebook and things like all the winners that, but I never posted up how much I lost. I mean, if you looked at my timeline, you probably think I was a millionaire, but no one knew the extent of damage that, because people just talk about their wins and stuff. And also talking about money a lot, asking about when payday is, or even maybe borrowing money off of other staff. These are all red flags, and their potential. It's not necessarily mean that a person does, but these are all potential warning signs to look out for in your staff and employees, that someone could be struggling with their gambling.
Yeah, and it's great that you sort of alluded to sort of, it's not just our customers we should be looking out for, it's actually just the people that we engage with every day, our colleagues, our friends, our family. It's, these are definitely indicators that we can pick up in other people. Start that conversation, I guess, isn't it? And just sort of say, hang on, is everything okay? Yeah,
definitely. And it's just having and just asking that question, and someone might not be ready at that time, but if you've kind of normalised the conversation, maybe when someone gets into a bit of trouble further down the line, they think, oh, I can actually go and talk to this person because they did try and open up a conversation before. Yeah, and going back to your other part of the question, so that's how to identify and how to organisations can offer support and stuff. It's just having an awareness really of what is out there. I mean, and being able to signpost. You've got the National Problem Gambling Helpline. That's a service that runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So, if someone's struggling, they can pick up the phone and talk to someone. And obviously GamCare run that, but they also have a chat line on their website. If you don't feel comfortable talking to someone, you can type on your phone or your laptop. They have forums on their chat rooms, and there's also things like Gam Stop, Gam Ban, and you can also put banking blocks on as well. So you can, I think most high street banks offer that service now. You can switch on the gambling block, and if you try depositing money to any gambling site, it will block the transaction. The same sort of Gam Stop is an online self-exclusion scheme, and that self-excludes you from all UK registered gambling operators. So yeah, I mean they're sort of a good starting point for organisations to signpost.
Yeah, there's some good ones there. And my eldest son, he's got special needs. We put some restrictions on his bank account actually, and then the cashier at the bank sort of said, "Oh, did you want to put a gambling restriction?" I thought, well, he hasn't yet found the gambling websites, but I thought actually, yeah, let's just pop it on now, just to be sure. So it's given me that peace of mind. If there was anyone listening who was wanting to reach out for some support, what would you recommend, and what support is there for them, and what would be their first step?
Yeah, obviously, thinking back to my own experiences and stuff, I think the first step's the hardest one, because it's really coming to terms with that you have got a problem, and reaching out for help can sometimes be, it's obviously the first conversation, but it's sometimes the most difficult. And once you've got that out of the way, and you've actually, spoke to someone, and that there is help and support out there, it moves on from there really. But I would say to anyone that is listening, and that is struggling to really reach out. And I wish I would have reached out a lot sooner than I actually did. And I speak to a lot of people in recovery that say the same thing, or, because it generally, you have to hit your rock bottom from people that we speak to before you reach out for help. And I wish that wasn't the case. So, if you're listening and you are struggling, really do reach out. It's a life in recovery is amazing, and it is possible. I never thought it was possible. But now, I'm living proof that it is, and other people that I speak to. So, yeah, really have that conversation, open up, talk to, like I just said in the previous answer, like the signposting where to go. You've got the National Problem Gambling Helpline, you've got all the services that GamCare run, you've got the banking blocks, the Gam Stop, the Gam Ban, but they're kind of initial safeguards, and they kind of, using them standalone just kind of puts a plaster on the wound, doesn't make it go away. So you really need to do the work on yourself, and whether that be through counselling, through peer support. There's lots of active, people in recovery on Twitter that, and myself, we're all, willing to, help people that reach out. And, we haven't got the silver bullet, we haven't got the magic answer, and different things work for different people. But just having that conversation, we can offer advice. Have you tried this? Have you thought about this? And it's the hard work has to come from you, but it's nice to have someone there to talk to and to guide you through.
I think it's nice as well to have somebody, well, probably nice is the wrong word, but it's powerful probably to have somebody that you can turn to that has been through it before, because I think that significantly changes their mindset, that actually if you're opening up to somebody who really does know what you're going through, has probably a greater chance of success, rather than sort of somebody who's empathizing but they haven't been through that before, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sort of coming on to the podcast today. It's just been wonderful to have you, and thank you so much for sharing your story. I mean, that's a really powerful story, and it's fantastic to hear the great work that you're doing. So are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I just think probably reiterating what I've already said, really. If someone is listening to this, if someone can resonate or connect to my story, or someone's a bit fearful of coming forward and talking, just really do come forward. Don't suffer in silence. It's the longer you leave it, the more damage you can do, and you may feel like there's no way back, but there is. Recovery is possible. So yeah, anyone listening that is struggling, reach out.
Thank you so much, Matt, for being my guest today. It's powerful to have you share that experience, I think, with our listeners today. If the conversation in today's episode has raised any questions or has resonated with you, please do get in touch with Matt or BetKnowMore, or even just somebody that you really, really trust. I think it's absolutely crucial that you reach out for help, and that you encourage other people that maybe are struggling with a gambling addiction to reach out for help. Thank you for listening to this episode of Unlocking Vulnerability. Please take care of yourself and stay safe and well. Remember to subscribe to my podcast and leave a review. You can also follow me on Twitter at @HPettiferTrain, and I look forward to you joining me on my next episode.